Hello, my Positive Presence Podcast people. I am so incredibly honored and humbled to have you meet our season finale of Positive Soul. I often talk about, and if you've been listening to this season, the Positive Soul season has really followed my own journey of personal development and my journey into connecting to myself and my soul purpose, which is ultimately what has led me to where I am today. And when I was kind of outlining the guests, and we put a lot of time, energy, thought into our guests that we have. When I was outlining the guests for this season, I was telling Taya that I could not have a Positive Soul season without two of the biggest people that ultimately helped. They were the catalyst for me really diving into and acknowledging my greatest purpose and my personal power. And I cannot wait to have such an incredible conversation with these two people. They require no introduction, but Sam and Yelena, they have I wish that you guys could be a part of this energy that exists when these two are around. They are angels on earth. They are people that have changed my life and the lives of so many others. And I would love nothing more than to introduce you to the amazing Sam and Yelena. Thank you, you two, for being here.
Yoo-hoo! Such an honor and such a blessing to be connected with you and the listeners that will listen to the podcast. So, yay! Very excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, Sam and Yelena, you two have such an incredible kind of soul journey that you have been on. I know for your lives. Like, what was the kind of turning point for both of you individually and together that really allowed you the opportunity to discover your soul purpose of helping others find theirs?
Yeah. Sam, why don't you start?
It's a broad question. Repeat it again. Repeat the question.
What was where did the calling come from? Like what was that calling for you to help you find your place and helping others find their place? I mean, because that's what I think for me personally, your greatest gift to me was helping me find my journey and helping me find my purpose. Like, how did you find that calling for yourself?
Well, the calling found me. And that's the way it works, really. Mm-hmm. The calling finds you. It's like your teachers find you in a sense, very subtle level. I mean, the messages I got to do the work that I do came out of a very young age, 10, 12 years old.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I've been doing shamanic practices for at least 45 years or more. Mm-hmm. And so it's always been part of my soul. It's always been part of me, who I am. And so it's something that I was born with, basically. Something I've done before, something here I am again, doing it again,
Yeah. I love that. And I mean, that's why you're such an incredible teacher and expert at it. You've been doing it for so long and you do it so effortlessly. I mean, I feel like when I'm in your presence, Yelena, you're no different. You both have just this calming energy about you that exuberates this love and light. And I think it gives others permission to find that in themselves, this equal kind of energy match in themselves. And it's really transcendence, I think, for a lot of the people that I've met that have experienced the connection to you too.
Yeah, and speaking for myself, I feel like our journey never ends, right? And for me, when I was growing up, I was watching my mother, who was a physician, and she was serving people so selflessly, day and night. And that showed me how to show up for others. But at the same time, I felt very different, and I was having these visions and seeing things and hearing things, and I felt that somehow I couldn't share it with anyone, and so there was this parallel, a kind of um, parallel worlds that existed for me at that time. One was how to do it, how to serve other people in a three-dimensional world, and at the same time to have your own little world, or not so little, but compared to what is out there. And for me, for many years, those two worlds, they coexisted and were running in a parallel kind of fashion. And only later in life, I found a way how I could blend them together. And the big turning point for me was meeting Sam, a man with a big heart that kind of opened up, in a way, gave me permission to be who I was all the time, and who embraced me with all that I was, with all my humanness, and at the same time with everything else that I was. And so once we met each other and started our journey together, that it kind of like skyrocketed the whole process, um, getting getting into service of others in the best possible way for both of us, I feel, and individually as well. So we do work together as a couple, supporting each other, but at the same time, I feel like our individual work with others is getting more and more powerful as well, because I feel that we are able to empower each other, which I feel really important for couples um, doing sharing life and sharing their calling together. So yeah, I think that was a major turning point, like meeting this amazing man, and it's been already 13 years. Yeah, already. Yeah.
Well,
Like yesterday.
I can't imagine Sam without Yelena, or Yelena without Sam. And I know
Right.
I think this importance of this dichotomy. I mean, so much of what you said, Yelena, are so many things that I've learned from both of you. Is, I wrote down purpose, and service, like, and how
Mhm.
duality of that. I mean, when I first met you, Sam, you have been personally one of my greatest teachers in my life. You really challenged my thought of what is positive presence, and why is it just a business? Is that why you created this, or is it something that you created to be in service of others? And finding this kind of duality and juxtaposition of purpose and service. And I also love too, Yelena, you brought up, and I think this could be our kind of our talking points here, is that, well, Yelena, you also brought up soul, the soul experience and the human experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Human experience, and recognizing that, like, we can't exist without both. Like, so many people get so esoteric that they forget that there's going to be humanness that we have to elevate to, and vice versa. And also this balance of individuality and connectedness. And I'm so glad that you perfectly outlined, I mean, as you do. People can take from this episode specifically is just that juxtaposition, the dualities that exist in life and in purpose and in individuals and in soul. Sam, I know that you have a lot of lessons about duality, but I would love to talk a little bit more about like the purpose and service, and how have you found that balance in your own life, and why is it so important for others to practice that in theirs too?
I'd reframe it a little bit differently here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, each person has a gift. Every person on this planet has a gift.
Yes.
And you align yourself with your gift, there's a happiness connected to that. There's a joy in expressing what your gift is. And the gift and the purpose are hand in hand, they're two sides of the same coin. So as one opens up, as one gets quieter, actually, the quieter your mind gets, the deeper you go into your true self. So the true self, the sovereign of the self, is just presence. It's just the here and now. So the deeper you go into this presence, into the here and now, the deeper you feel the want to express your gift. And the deeper you go into presence, the more you feel this presence everywhere. You feel it in the form of consciousness. And you receive consciousness from all over the place, from the trees, from the plants, from people, from everywhere. And you can't help but want to give back to this consciousness in the form that you have been gifted to give back with. And I've worked in prisons, I've worked all over the place, and everyone has a gift of some kind. And when you're aligned with your gift, you're on purpose. You can't help but not be. And so the real work here is really one, getting quiet, to really receiving what I came here to do, to express my gift. And that's what the soul is asking of us. It's asking us for us to show up with our gift. Imagine a world where everyone had the opportunity to share their gifts. What an incredible, beautiful world this would be. And where we've gone astray is we've crushed people's gifts. We've crushed people's purposes. Unintentionally, but it's happened. I can go on and on about why that happens, but but the change here, the real change that's happening to everyone, is happening to this world, is really the expansion of consciousness.
Yeah.
And it's consciousness that's really the changing agent here. There's all kinds of techniques and processes and more processes, but really it comes down to consciousness.
Yeah.
And how do you develop consciousness? How do you develop awareness? Awareness of what? The self. And the deeper you go into the self, the more you see the self is everywhere. It's not just in you, but it's everywhere. In fact, after a while, there's no place you can't find it. And that brings to oneness. Because ultimately, there's only one of us here anyway. And this is the most important thing to realize, is that there's only one of us here. And if we as humanity would start to be more conscious of that fact, war would end. Why would you want to go kill yourself? We're all here together as one. And someday, I pray that someday we learn how to interact and communicate and treat each other in that way.
Yes.
And what a beautiful world this would be. And we're up against forces that go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
There's lots of reasons for that, but I don't need to go into that so much. But it's really, in developing your purpose and developing your gift, you can't help. You have to become quiet. Because the true self, the sovereign in you, doesn't do anything. The sovereign of presence is not the doer. Everything that you're doing is all archetypal. It's all these characters who put masks on, warriors and lovers and magicians and a whole host of other archetypes that do all the doing. But really, the sovereign, we all share the same sovereign.
Yeah.
That's presence. How can I delineate my presence from your presence? And the beautiful thing about presence is that there's not like, well, you're a level 9 presence and I'm a level. Yeah. The beautiful thing about that is there is no delineation of levels like that. Presence, presence.
Yeah.
And that's what's so beautiful about it. And the more you sink into that, the more you naturally align yourself to purpose, and that you naturally align yourself to get to your gifts of expression. You can't help not to.
One of the most life-changing moments of my entire career as an entrepreneur was with you, Sam. And I remember I don't know if you would remember this, but I remember sitting in your house, and this was right before I moved, and you said, "What is positive presence, Michelle?" And I got stumped by that question, because when I first started my company 7 years ago, I saw positive presence as that which you are when you show up. Like it's a play. It's kind of like this facade you put on, and you impact people by that power. And Sam, you helped me understand that positive presence is sovereign, that it actually is the deepest part of you. And what our purpose is as a company and what we do is we help the next generation get connected to self. And that's literally the embodiment, the epitome of positive presence. And it was a total 360 for me, going back to that 7 years ago when those two words came into my spirit, which I didn't even know what that was. And I'm so incredibly grateful that you helped me awaken to the understanding of sovereign and archetypes. And it's so important. And you speak so eloquently about, I've spoken about this as well, the precipice, like we're on the precipice of a utopia. If we can, as a society, connect to that which is within us, then we find our gifts and we show up in that power and we impact people without having to do anything. We just are. It's so incredibly powerful, my friend. I mean, and you speak it so truthfully, like it's just so honest, and I'm so incredibly grateful.
Well, the other thing I want to point out here is the angle of positive presence really has to do with this tangible spark of life. And there's when you feel this spark of light, you feel alive. Positive presence is about being alive and about having the spark of aliveness. And really, and really, it's a really important piece, because this spark is what, when you have that spark, the spark goes to someone else. It goes to someone else, and the spark spreads. And the next person gets the spark. The next person gets the spark. And so we're sparking everybody in a way.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
But it's really
Sparkle.
It's really the spark that is going to change the world, and you're part of that, you're trying to spark people. You're trying to, and that spark is this.
She's
light.
not trying. She's doing it. She's doing it. Yes, you're doing it, Michelle.
I heard from the best, you two. Let me tell you. I agree. I completely agree. It's like our last season was the awakening, and Sam also, and in our healing circles, I mean, I've learned that as well from both of you, is that, recognizing that when you speak about getting quiet and like just giving yourself permission to go inward and find your gift, I feel like the awakening is that process. Like it is truly the permission of getting quiet and inward. And I feel like so many people, I mean, when I was first met you two, I was so afraid to get quiet. I was so afraid of what I was going to find and the depth of the darkness. And so I avoided it. And thus I was never really operating in my sovereign. Sam, how do you, or Yelena, I'm sure too, you would have question or answer to this. I mean, how do you encourage people to fight past that fear of what they might find internally and give themselves permission and be brave to get quiet and listen?
No, you go. My expert on. Don't tell me you.
First of all, it's a matter of an investigation of what is in between thoughts. What is in between thoughts? And that's where the juice is at. That's where everything happens. It's what's in, not of thought, but what's in between thoughts. And so the investigation of trying to find, who am I? What is this that's in between thought? And most people go from thought that they get up in the morning and they spend all day long thought. And they're exhausted of thoughts. And so really the real true exploration here is to explore what is this in between thoughts. And there you find a lot of really cool stuff. One is you find the spark. The spark doesn't exist of thought. It exists that which is in between the thoughts. And that's where you start to perceive the light of God. The light of this beautiful presence. It's not of thought. This divine light is not of thought. It's that which is in between thought, which is always present with us. We're thinking so much, we miss it. We forget who we are completely. And we get totally tied up into our identities of who we are and what we think. And so part of it is letting go of the thought process and experience yourself, experience your identity without thought. And there something very beautiful starts to happen. This beautiful unfolding of one, the spark, to your gift, becomes very clear to you. And that in turn brings you into purpose. And that in turn brings you into happiness. That in turn brings you into prosperity. It's just boom, 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 boom. They all line up. And it's all connected to getting out of the way. As an old black preacher once said, you have to get your butt out of the way. And so that's really the big part of the game here is to be able to really discover, who am I? And to have that question, to be inquisitive, to have, who am I? 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 Because most of us run around not knowing who we are. Yeah. We're made up of weird thinking concepts. Well, I'm this, I'm that, this, that. And all that is not real. It's made up stuff. We make it up.
But it was made up for us and we absorbed it. But if I may add something, like to answer that question, like for me personally, what made a difference when I allowed myself to become real and admitting that, yes, I'm a real person. Yeah, that's great, like between the thoughts and stuff and who am I? But at the same time, I realized, okay, I am a human in a human body, and I got all this stuff that I'm not sure what's inside. I was afraid to go inside and to find something like, oh my God, something horrible. Like, am I hiding something like that? And once I gave myself permission to just sit with and to see and to allow those things that I pushed down somewhere like into the basement of my being to arise and to show themselves up, that brought up all those different aspects of myself that I was not happy with or I was judging. And I realized that in order for me to feel good and to kind of put it all together, I needed to embrace all of them, to look at that and say, okay, and this is this, and this is part of me, and this is part of me. And, people are talking about shadow work. Yeah, it can be intense because we are brought up to by society, by families. We're shaped since we're children to be certain way and to judge ourselves and to say, oh, this is okay and this is not okay. I can be like that, but I cannot express that. And so for me, that was very important to really uh, live my purpose after I was able to say, okay, I'm all that I am, and I'm stepping fully into my purpose with all that I am. And that's what it is. My purpose, one of my purposes is just to be fully human while still thriving to connect with my higher self and to make decisions from a higher place or of higher consciousness, while connecting also through my heart with everything that I am and with everything that everybody else is, and what, like, with all this oneness thing that Sam likes to talk about.
And gosh, Yelena, that I wrote that down as well as you were talking, that making friends of all sides of you, like making friends with different versions that exist of total self-acceptance, self-love. I mean, and I think that's, and for you to say that you yourself have had, demons and those versions of you that you've had to come to terms with, that you've had to make, like, you've had to love parts of you. I truly consider you the embodiment of light. I'm so
you
in so many situations have literally seen you exuberate light at the highest degree, and physically and spiritually. And so for me to hear that as one of your students and someone that is a mentee of yours, that you've struggled with darkness and had that self-acceptance, I really want to put an emphasis on that to our listeners, that it is so possible to be so loving of all versions of yourself that you get to the highest degree of light, even knowing that they exist, because you've done that, Yelena.
Oh, still going through it. But I feel that this topic of different aspects of ourselves is very very tightly connected to what Sam is doing in his work with archetypes. Yeah. That we have those archetypes, and each archetype has a light and dark expression, and depending on how, what energy of any particular archetype is engaged at any given moment, that how this archetype shows up in our lives. And so I feel it's very important work that Sam has been doing with people, showing them that those archetypes are just like certain programs.
I like that.
Right? Yeah. Let's.
I'd like to simplify all this.
Yeah. Too much.
And really, the issue here that most people have in trying to find purpose is really dialed directly into your capacity to receive. And I'm very serious about this. It's like most people who are stuck and most people who struggle a lot is they're not receiving much. Your receivership is blocked. You're not even making an effort to receive. Or you spend time really focusing on am I receiving love today? Am I receiving compassion? Am I receiving consciousness? Am I receiving light? And so a big chunk of the work I do is help people push up their receivership big time.
You did that to me, my friend.
Yeah.
And so really, it really comes down to receiving. The more you're capable of receiving, the more you're capable of serving, the more you're capable of loving and capable of becoming conscious. Is all really dialed into your capacity of receiving. If you're not receiving anything, That's where depression sets in. That's where all kinds of negative traits come in because there's nothing coming in. You're not trying to bring anything in. And so really it's about creating practices of receivership. Because really the highest really here is just to be a channel, something to flow through you. Is to step out of the way of being the doer. It's the doer that gets us in trouble all the time.
Right.
When we're really the highest, there's something coming through us. And what is that something? It's the presence, It's that which is not between the thought that flows through us. And that's flow. It's like you're on a ski mountain, you're skiing and you become one with the mountain and you're not thinking, you're just skiing. Or runner's high, you're just running and all of a sudden you're just breath. That's flow. That's flow, that which is between the thoughts, And the more you're able to receive compassion, particularly, the more compassionate you become. And so it's important to really start to investigate your sources. What are your sources that you can receive from? And most people are very confused about this and are disconnected from what their true sources are. My main source is consciousness. And consciousness to me is in grass, it's in the sky, it's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the ground, it's everywhere I look. It holds some sense of consciousness about it. And I spend all day long trying to receive as much of that as I can. Seriously, And that consciousness turns into love, and that love turns into light. And if I got that going on every day, I'm just fine. life is working really quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And so if there's anything I have to share with anyone out there who might be listening to this, is learn how to receive way more than you are now. Receive 100 times more.
Yeah.
And life will work out really beautifully.
If I may, when you taught me this lesson, because this was one of my very first lessons with you, you had me print off, I don't know if you remember this, Sam, you had me print off the Milky Way. And when you had me first kind of create my altar, my spiritual and energy altar at my house, you say, I want you to print off a picture of the Milky Way and put it on your altar. Can you share why that is such a positive way to kind of start connecting with receivership?
Well, there's two things about that. One is the Milky Way is in a spiral. And everything is created from this spiral. The spiral and creativity are, again, two sides of the same coin. Your creative energy comes out of the spiral comes, and the biggest spiral that we have in front of us is the Milky Way. If you really dial into that, you have an enormous amount of creative energy at your disposal. The other mistake that most of us make is we think that the universe is out there and we're here.
Yeah.
And again, as you get quieter, you start to realize that the universe really is inside of us. The whole Milky Way is inside of us. So imagine if you have that kind of energy accessible to you, to express through you, then you have no shortage of energy. I mean, nebulas and galaxies and all this stuff is all part of something that we have access to, that we're part of. I mean, consider you're 98% space, right? The space and the molecules and the atoms and everything. What do you think the space is connected to? That space is part of the Milky Way. It's part of the universe. It is us. We are brothers of that. We are sisters of that. And we share all the same space, and then the space is us. And you are that. And we've been that all along. We just forgot. Oh yeah, right.
Oh, I am a part of Milky Way.
So it's an important aspect to create expansion, to expand, and to get out of your small self. This is the biggest problem humanity has, is you have the large self and you got the small self. And the small self is what causes all the problems. Because it's ruled by fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's fear that creates war. It's fear that all the greed and destruction and the negative aspects are really motivated by fear. The big self has no fear because it's all of it. What's it to be afraid of? It is everything.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate goal spiritually. The ultimate goal spiritually is to become everything. You're all of it. I mean, that's what we're trying to get to, you know. And then what? Then you become all of it. Then what do you do? You know? And then all you do is express your gift.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Spirituality is simple. It's not complex at all. It's a very simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
We make it very complex.
Yes.
It cannot be that easy, right?
What I've been trying to say for this whole season: positive soul, spirituality, simple. So simple. Like, let's just help people understand that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think too that, I mean, Yelena, one of the life-changing moments that I've had with you was in Healing Circle. I remember telling you I was really battling, like combating with my inner self, my outer self, my fear. And I kept on saying out loud, I can't choose happiness. I can't choose. Like I was stuck. And you said, or I said, I can't find happiness. That's what I said. I said, I can't find happiness. And Yelena, you came and you sat right in front of me, knee to knee, and you said, choose happiness. And you have to choose it. And that's the accepting of it. And that, again, just, I mean, the reason why I have you guys as my, my finale is because I've learned so many lessons that I implement every single day from both of you. But Yelena, like, can you help people understand, you know, in that simplicity context of like spirituality is so simple. It is a choice. Like, how can people who are listening to this, teenagers, parents of teenagers, you know, people, young entrepreneurs who are stuck in all of the unknown, all the fear, how can you help them understand the simple context of a choice to be happy and to connect?
You know, once I realized that I am creating my reality and other people creating their own reality, and we're all co-creating together, it just shifted my perspective on how I can live my life. That each choice is a power choice because it sets up in motion some energies that we may not see at the moment. Let's say I'm depressed and I did some work, I try to meditate, whatever, but I feel still depressed. But my intention, I want to experience joy and happiness. And once I voice it, once I say it loud for myself, something starts shifting right away. Even if I don't see it, even if it may be not showing up right away, but I am going in that direction, like energetically, and like my energy somehow is flowing in that way, and the universe is going to meet me somewhere, you know. So I feel that when we set up this intention, when we decide what we want and voice it, it already sets energies in motion. So I feel that that's our power.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so if Sam has a comment on that.
There's a word, there's a Sanskrit word that goes Sat Chitananda. Sat Chitananda means pure conscious bliss. And that's what exists between thoughts. And so Sat Chitananda Sharana means I take refuge in that. And this is where people are very confused. Is and how do I surrender? How do I surrender this mess I'm in? How do I surrender the pain that I feel? And what am I surrendering to? And what you want to take refuge in is this space in between thoughts, that when you really sit in that, it becomes blissful. You know, my early trainings, I mean, I was given this name Devananda because I was in bliss all the time, because I would meditate. I was meditating 4 hours a day, and I was just always in bliss, you know. And so I had direct experience of what I'm talking about. You know, I'm just being in that and being able to take refuge in that. And this is where people aren't taught of, where do you find refuge? Where do you find a place? And this is important for teenagers to know. It's, where do I find a place that's safe in myself? Where do I find a place that I can rest? Where do I find a place in me that is consistent, that I depend on? And that is this place that's in between the thoughts. Satchitananda, pure consciousness. And when you sit there in a pure way, you can't help but go into bliss. That's beautiful that way. And you surrender to that. You hold on to that. Because that's how you can rest. That's how you can take refuge from the craziness of the world. And the world's quite nuts. No question about it. You know, and so everyone has to find a place of refuge to stay sane. I find a place of refuge to stay balanced, to stay clear. And if you don't have that, things get very confusing and very tiring and exhausting.
Yeah, but Sam, may I ask you, let's say, especially for teenagers, they might be like, wondering, how do I find the space between my thoughts, and where I'm looking for, you know? Yeah,
that's a very simple process too. Just simply pay attention to the sensation of your breath. The air, as the air hits the hair in your nostrils, right? That pure sensation takes you right to presence. As soon as you feel the sensation in your breath, you're present. And it's that simple.
Yeah.
You know, it's just simply following the sensation in your breath and letting go of thoughts and learning to take refuge in that. Learning to take refuge in the presence of being. And relax. Recharge. You know, feel the spark.
So what do you mean? What do you mean? Just to sitting quietly and connecting with your breath, following your breath might bring you into.
That's all that's necessary.
To experiencing actually space between your thoughts. Yeah,
exactly. This whole spiritual practice called Vipassana meditation, Buddhist meditation. That's all they do is pay attention to the breath. You know, and you can go into more sophisticated types of things around that, but that's all that's necessary. Is to pay attention to the breath. And the other thing that's really important here that I find that people don't understand is that all stress is related to your exhalation. All the things that you're freaking out about and everything that you're worried about and everything you're holding on is all connected to your exhalation, how you exhale. And so one way
You still don't remember hearing that. That's something new I'm learning.
And so if you really want to let go, you have to let go of your exhalation. What is letting go? You're dropping your breath. You're letting go of your breath. You're exhaling. That is letting go. You're not letting go breathing in. You're receiving letting in. You're letting go as you exhale out. And so the exhalation is really, really important in releasing all the junk that's in your life, and releasing the things that bother you. You know, if you got tense muscles, it's because you're holding on to your breath. You're holding on to this tension. You know? And so the highest form of this is where you can learn how to let gravity itself release the air in the lungs. It's a short breath, and it just totally releases everything. You're not pushing the breath out. The gravity itself is releasing. And when you do that, you let go of all your tension. The problems you're dealing with, the things you're pissed off about, all that releases. And so this business around the exhalation and really letting go and becoming more present is really important. The business of receiving is in your inhalation. It's really important. But there's lots we can go into that about. But this exhalation business is really important to understand, because most people don't have any idea about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? You let go.
I feel like we could have we could have 6 hours of coverage. We could have our whole little series just on Sam and Yelena lessons. Like you both are such an overwhelming, in a good way, source of just knowledge. And you're absolutely right. I mean, when I first met you both, I was overcomplicating so much about that, which I now implement seamlessly and effortlessly every day. And I think when people can just simply understand that, like, get rid of all the eccentricity, like let it, just make it simple, just do simple things every single day to practice. It comes so natural, and your life begins to change. Sam, too, I remember you telling me, because I think I worked with you for like 4 months. And I remember after like the first month, I'm like, Sam, nothing's happening. I'm like, nothing's changing. Life still sucks. Like, what? Harder, because now I'm doing this on top of it. Like, I was really pushing against it. And you're like, you got to stop. You have to have patience, and you have to stop trying, stop doing, stop like having to have something, and just exist in that which is right now. And I think that was the turning point for me in this journey with you, Sam, was being okay with not being okay in a moment.
Just being fully present with whatever it is right now, and acceptance. I find, like, personally for myself, whatever is happening, and all of a sudden I start like, maybe it's not okay. Once I accept it and settle down and ground myself into the present, all of a sudden the flow comes back and something starts happening, because I do not resist what already is. That resistance creates this stuckness in ourselves quite often. That we start, I don't want it. No, what? No. And while we're resisting what it is, we're blocking anything else actually coming into our space, into our lives. And so, I'm dealing with it from time to time, like, oh no. And then like, oh, okay. Oh yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so incredibly grateful for both of you. I mean, I'm very humbled that it's not too often that I get to thank my heroes and people that have changed my life for the better forever. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I get to thank you both. Like I feel like in the moments when I was with you, it's hard to see the impact that you have in people. And it does take years sometimes, like it did with me. And I am such a good person because of what I've learned through you as my teachers. So I am so incredibly grateful. And please know that your lessons that you have taught me, I continue to teach others. And so that is a ripple effect of your impact, and it's going to have generational impact on these students. So I'm just so incredibly grateful for both of you. Thank you.
Yay, and we're so grateful for you and for your beautiful presence.
I would like to add one more thing here. For kids, for teenagers, is the most important thing you can do is to trust your intuition impeccably. Where kids get messed up is that they get crushed around their intuitive knowing, their truth, until they're wrong or whatever, and they start to doubt themselves. And then you doubt yourself the rest of your life about certain things. The intuition, you never ever doubt it. It's always true. And that's your gut. And the gut's either saying yes by being loose or saying no by being tight. Those two things. The intuition is always talking to you by being tight or being loose. And if you totally trust your intuition all the time, you will be guided by the universe. And the light of God is the voice of your intuition. Intuition is the voice of the light of God that's inside of you. So never, ever, 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 ever doubt that you intuitively know. Even when people are telling you you're wrong, there can be multiple truths. And people can disagree and whatever, but never compromise what you know. And if you notice at a very young age, you will be guided to find your purpose. You'll be guided to find your gifts very clearly. It's an intuitive process. This is the science of shamanism. It's an art of intuition. It truly is. The intuition of guiding your life, intuition of healing, the intuition of relationship and community. It's all a very intuitive process. And where we've gotten screwed up is we started not trusting our intuition.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's the teaching that I want to give to young people. Always trust your intuition by either being tight or loose. Yes or no.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Okay, another simple thing.
Another simple thing.
Trusting yourself, right?
Well, thank you so much, you guys. How can people, I mean, I know there's really so many incredible people in Colorado and across the country that are gifted to know you and be with you and have been in your presence. But if people want to learn more about Sam and Yelena, is there a way in which they can find more out about you? Or
Good luck. No.
We don't have a website or like any particular like establishment. I don't know. We have our community that was created by the word of mouth, and so I don't know, like how. Yeah,
you can post a phone call. You can call us.
Yeah, or maybe text. You can share our.
We talk to everyone. We talk all day long to people.
Yeah. So
if you want to get in touch with Sam and Yelena, you reach out to Michelle Marie King. I will put you in touch with Sam and Yelena.
That's probably the best way. Yeah. So
we're old school, what guys?
So Michelle, thank you so much for inviting us, and it was so beautiful, like to connect with you, and thank you for amazing work that you are doing, shining your light and sharing your gifts.
Spark.
Yeah, your spark. You're the powerhouse, the sparkling powerhouse.
Well, thank you both. And to all of our listeners, thank you again for taking the time to listen this season. If you haven't listened to our other episodes before, please go and listen and then come and listen to this finale. I'm so incredibly grateful for all of our listenership. If you can comment, share our podcast, find us on any of your favorite podcast providers. And to learn more about Positive Presence Global, you can Google Positive Presence Global or go to positivepresenceglobal.com. Appreciate you all. And remember, positivity can only spread when it is present. Bye, everybody.
Okay.